Let's get started. It is 2:03, so settle in. We have a really, really interesting conversation to get to here. So continue dropping in your organization and your city in the chat while we get started. So protecting your mental health while doing voter engagement. We were just chatting, myself and the panelists, about how this conversation is also for us. So maybe especially for us. But we wanted to make sure that we uplift this very important conversation. It's a topic that has come up many times as requested by you all. So thank you so much for your feedback. But we are going to get started with a very dynamic conversation and set the stage for the discussion. First, let me say that this webinar is being recorded. That is the number one question we always get. And Jack is going to kick us off with a quick poll about why you guys are here and how confident you feel about doing voter engagement in your communities this year. So take just a second to answer the poll. We want to see if there is a trend in how we feel as we get closer, so that we can make sure that we equip you with the resources and tools to make sure that you actually feel very confident, because that's very important. If you're not confident, your communities won't be confident. You guys are the trusted voices. So thank you so much for doing this work. Once again, yes, this webinar is being recorded. The link will be shared. You have used some of these reactions at the bottom already, so thank you so much. Please continue using those. But if you have questions that you would like to be answered during this webinar, drop them into that Q&A box instead of the chat. If you drop them into the chat, we might lose them. So put your questions into the Q&A box. Cool. But yes, please keep sending those reactions. We need it. We need the positivity and the joy, right? That is why we are all here. So who we are and what we do. My name is Cheyenne Sapp. You guys may know me. I am the campaign director for National Voter Registration Day. Thank you to all of you who have filled out this poll. Looks like we have 86% participated, so that is wonderful. I'll leave it open for just another minute while you input your answer. But National Voter Registration Day, for those of you who may not know, is managed by Nonprofit Vote, which is the leading provider of nonpartisan resources for nonprofits. You can check out our biennial report to find out more about the work. But we are doing this work because no single organization should have to carry NVRD alone or voter engagement alone. So NVRD really is the day when nonprofits come together with elected officials and schools and businesses and libraries, and we all share the same mission. So it's very important that under Nonprofit Vote, we align all of those resources for you. To those of you who have already signed up to run voter drives on September 15th, thank you. We are 109 days away. And again, this is really a celebration of our democracy. It gives Americans the opportunity to register for either their first time or check their registration or update their registration. Everybody who is an American citizen should be doing that this year. So whether you're a longtime partner or new this year, we welcome you or welcome you back. More than 6 million registrations did not happen because one organization worked harder than everyone else. It happened because collectively, thousands of organizations show up every year together to do this work. So we thank you, and we would love to have you continue to do this work alongside us. National Voter Registration Day is absolutely not possible without the generosity of our sponsors, so I have to always give them a shout out and just acknowledge them for their financial support. They're the ones that allow us to create these posters and stickers every single year and mail them out to you all at no cost. So we want to keep National Voter Registration Day free and available to all so that you guys have the access and materials that you need to run your drive. So thank you to our sponsors. And for becoming an NVRD partner, I'm sure most of you already know this because I see so many familiar faces, so many familiar names in the chat. To become a partner, we just have a few rules. Be nonpartisan, be inclusive, be informed. We will help you with the informed part, and that's why you're here today. Stay non-transactional, be vote ready, and of course, have fun. Our nonpartisan framework really creates the spaces for organizations from every sector and community to be able to stand together around voter participation. So as long as we are aligned that this work is nonpartisan, we are good to go, right? So thank you again for continuing to be nonpartisan, especially when it becomes very difficult in such a highly politicized environment. Here is the code, the QR code to sign up to become a community partner for this year. Again, to receive the free materials, you have to sign up even if you have signed up in the past. Your information may have changed, so we want to make sure that it goes to the right person, right? We will mail you a package of posters and stickers, and we already have about 700 local organizations signed on for this year. So that is absolutely tremendous, and we're really excited about that. We're expecting about 4,500 organizations to sign on. So Jack is going to drop the link into the chat so that you can sign up directly. But we thank you because communities really do need trusted voices right now. So you are becoming part of a nationwide network, helping voters feel informed and supported and connected. What can you do as a community partner? So these are for the folks that are new. A few tactical ways that you can participate this year. Just remember, first and foremost, this work is not about carrying the weight of democracy on your own. It is about showing up together in ways that are sustainable, community-centered, and grounded in trust. So here are just a few examples of ways that you can show up for your community. For one, you can step up for those who have to step back. So for those who may not feel comfortable doing voter engagement this year, now's your time to get in there and make sure the void is filled. But also, of course, you can run your voter drives on September 15th. You can cross-promote National Voter Registration Day on any of your platforms and share it with your networks, but you can also just partner with other organizations that are doing that work. So Jack will also drop into the chat our email, info@nationalvoterregistrationday.org. Send us an email if you'd like to be connected to other organizations in your zip code. And as a community partner, again, you will receive access to your posters and stickers. For those of you who have participated in the past, you know that we mail it directly to you. You just give us the information of what languages you need and how many, but we got you. So we want to make sure that you get your packages and don't wait until the deadline. And we haven't shared it yet with the world, so you guys get the first sneak peek at our 2026 design, which we're really, really excited about. The poster is coming out soon, so this will be mailed to all of you. We will also have access, thank you for the reactions, we'll also have access for you as a digital download, but we're really excited. It is the 250th year of our country, of our democracy, and we are going to celebrate that. So we're just really excited to share first sneak peek with you all what the poster looks like. And without further ado, let's set the stage for this discussion today. So before we hear from our dynamic speakers, I just want to share that last month in April, many of you probably were there, but we had a discussion on how to register cultural communities, how to stay compliant with nonpartisan messaging, and then also how to show that you're mindful and sensitive around voter registration and engagement. So we heard from many of you in surveys that you also wanted some talking points and tips on maintaining mental health while doing voter engagement. For yourself, for your community, for your training, for your volunteers, but also how to be mindful of the struggle that members of your communities may be facing. So that's what we're going to talk about here today. Many may feel like voting is just not important. It's not an important part of their lives right now. They don't understand the connections between their mental health and services. So what we hope you'll take from today's webinar is a deeper understanding of this connection, insight into structural barriers and their real world impact, practical strategies for sustainable engagement and well-being, and a reframed view of civic engagement as a tool for connection and power. Most importantly, we hope that you'll leave remembering that civic engagement can still be joyful, collective, and healing when it's done within your community. And we wanted to make sure that you get these talking points and these insights from experts. So I want to welcome our speakers. I want to thank them for being here today. We have our longtime partner on National Voter Registration Day, Brandon Graham, who is the Director of Advocacy at the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And a new partner to NVRD, we have Tisha Garrett, who's the Managing Director of Democracy Security Project. So welcome you both. Thank you so much for being here for this discussion. Before we get to the panel, I'd like to invite both speakers to share a bit about their work. Let's start with Brandon. So if you're unfamiliar with the National Alliance on Mental Illness, also known as NAMI, it is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization, and Brandon oversees the advocate development and mobilization to advance policies that build better lives for all people affected by mental health conditions. Very important work. So I'll hand it to Brandon to tell you more about NAMI's work.
Thanks so much, Cheyenne. It's great to be here with everyone today. So again, I'm Brandon Graham. I use he, him pronouns. I am NAMI's Director of Advocacy at our national office. So I've been with NAMI for 8.5 years now, which is wild to think about. Time flies when you're doing a lot of great work. NAMI as an alliance, we're across the country. We are in your communities. We have over 650 plus state and local affiliates in every state across the country, providing support, education, advocacy, and something we'll be talking about today are get out the vote efforts around Vote for Mental Health. But before we get to that, I just wanted to talk about, why, the whys of this all. And the first point I really want everyone to remember is if you're struggling, if you're navigating things, if your loved ones are navigating things, you're not alone. We're going to go through these points because I just think they're really important for us to state out loud, which is more than 1 in 5 US adults experience a mental illness every year in the US. It's 1 in 20 US adults experiencing a serious mental illness like schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar disorder. It's about 1 in 7 youth ages 6 to 17 experiencing a mental health disorder. And 1 in 3 adults with mental illness also has a co-occurring substance use disorder. There are about 8.4 million folks in the US who are providing care, who are caregivers for people with mental illness. We're also really digging into, veterans' mental health. It's about 17.6% of veterans experiencing mental illness and about 9.6% of active service members. And I give you those numbers because it's not just that we're alone. I like to say 1 in 5 people with mental illness, 1 in 5 people have a mental illness, but 5 in 5 people are affected because we have societal impacts, the full ripple effect of why we're advocating and why it's so important to be part of the civic process. Only half of people in the United States with a mental health condition received treatment last year. And more than 120 million folks in the US live in a mental health professional shortage area. And when people can't get the care they need, there are really unfortunate and often tragic effects. Adults with mental illness are unemployed at a higher rate than adults without. High school students with recent symptoms of depression are more than twice as likely to drop out compared to their peers. 18% or so of people experiencing homelessness in the US have a serious mental illness. If we want to talk dollars and cents, depression and anxiety alone cost the global economy $1 trillion in lost productivity. And a fact that unfortunately we all know way too well is suicide is the second leading cause of death among people ages 10 to 24 in this country. And these are tough statistics to sit with and think about, but it is why we're here today. We want to help change systems. We want to help change the numbers. We want to help our loved ones, our friends, our family, ourselves. So that's why NAMI gets involved. So Cheyenne said, we're the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization. We are an organization that isn't a provider guild. We are an organization made up of everyday people across the country. Anyone who feels a connection or is affected by mental health can be part of our efforts here because we want to build better lives for everyone affected by mental health conditions. We want people to be living in a community that cares. So NAMI does all of this work and our longstanding work around elections engagement because the mental health services and supports in your community are affected by two major things that sometimes feel like common sense, but it's important to stress these out loud, which is the mental health care in your community is affected by so much more than just healthcare. Mental health is healthcare. It's the economy, it's housing, it's criminal justice, it's education. It's so many different policy issues that intersect with what we tend to describe just as mental health. And then every level, from the White House to Congress to your local school board, there is someone in between who is making some decision or taking some action that's going to affect mental health care in your community, which is why NAMI cares so much. Because mental health should be a key issue every election, because everyone in this country is already voting on it, whether they know so or not. So we've launched Vote for Mental Health, which is a completely nonpartisan 501(c)(3) compliant campaign that we lead to promote this nonpartisan voter participation to elevate mental health during our elections. You can learn more at voteformentalhealth.org. Thanks, Jack, for dropping that in the chat. I encourage you all to take the pledge. It's a non-binding way to just stand with us and say, hey, I'm going to go vote. And when I cast my ballot, no matter who it's for, I'm going to be thinking about the impact on mental health. It's a great way to get involved, and it's a great way to just participate and learn more because we'll be sure to follow up with a lot of great educational information about the intersection of mental health and voting. We're going to talk a lot more today about, mental health, about elections, about policy, about needs, so much there. But I'd be remiss to say that we can't make mental health a priority at the ballot box or in the civic process if we don't also make it a priority for ourselves. So I wanted to share a few tips on just self-care during election season that we have developed with our national helpline. And soon there will be additional help-seeking resources dropped in the chat throughout this webinar, but also afterwards. But here are just a few tips that I hope you take away today because I know I need these often while doing this work. So just a friendly reminder for everyone. First, get your elections news and updates from nonpartisan sources. I think we know there tends to be sensationalization in some corners of the internet, but it's great to rely on non-partisan sources like the Associated Press to find key updates. And when it comes to getting those key updates, you don't have to be connected all of the time. I know something that I've needed to come to terms with is I don't need everything pushed directly to my phone at all hours of the day. A step that I have taken to try to separate myself from some of these breaking news notifications, I have subscribed to way too many newsletters. But because I've subscribed to the different newsletters and information that I want, I can file those in one part of my inbox. I can check those when I want to see it and when I want to catch up on the news versus constantly barraging my phone in between all of the other important work that we're all doing. Third, I know I have a bad habit of doom scrolling. Not always doom scrolling. I just like to scroll. It's a nice activity to do, but you never know what's going to pop up next or what different rabbit hole you're going to chase after. Once you get one video, you're going to the next. So I don't want to say literally go outside, but it's helpful to go do different activities. Spend time doing things for you that might not be as reliant on your computer, your phone, your iPad. People really love doing puzzles. I tend not to be a great puzzle person, but folks love doing puzzles. They love going for a run or a walk through the local park. Just reading a book off your phone. I know I, as a way to try to separate, have gotten a little more into physical books again. That way, I'm not constantly on screens. But whatever it is, make sure you're doing things for you, things that fill your cup, things that make you feel connected again with not only your day to day, but your friends, your family, your community. That can be volunteering, that could be a local community group. That could be just going out and trying new local businesses. Do whatever can help fill your cup. And the last two pieces here, I think, are really important because we're all moving so quickly all of the time. But when you start to feel that stress, that anxiety, it is important to acknowledge those feelings. Sometimes we want to just move past them. We want to keep working. We want to try to climb every wall and jump every barrier to continue making such a big impact. But it's important to stop and acknowledge how you're feeling or what may be increasing those feelings for you. And when you do that, show yourself compassion because the data can show it, but also all these conversations we have with each other highlight that we're not alone. Talk to friends, family, trusted colleagues. Um, Speak with people you trust, whether that is, someone in your life or professional, and have these conversations about how you're feeling. It can be scary at first, but it's really important to just treat yourself with kindness during all of these stressful and chaotic times. Um, and we will share more of this information, but if you are seeking mental health resources, the NAMI helpline has different resources available to help you navigate that process. And if you're experiencing a crisis, if you're experiencing a mental health crisis, you're feeling really down, you don't know where to turn, you're feeling just some sort of distress, I do want everyone to know about 988, the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline that's available 24/7, 365 nationwide. You can call, text, or online chat and reach a counselor to help you talk through those feelings. You're not alone. Help is available. And just so grateful for all the work you all are doing. And I will stop there and pass it along.
Every time I talk to Brandon, it is just the most encouraging and heartwarming conversation. So that's why I knew to have him here today. Brandon, thank you so much. I think those are resources that are much needed, that folks probably may know about, but it's good to just have them right directly in front of us, right? We're all in this together, but it can be really challenging. So, Brandon, thank you. Okay, and we have another speaker that I am so excited for you guys to hear from as well. I would like to welcome Tisha Garrett. Tisha is a veteran strategist, a marketer, and a civic engagement leader with more than 20 years of experience. She is the director at Democracy Security Project. I attended the America Votes conference a couple of months ago or last month. God, it feels like a year ago. And Tisha spoke, and I just knew immediately that she would be a wonderful resource for you all. So, Tisha, thank you for being here, and I'll hand it to you to talk about your work.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Thank you, all of you who are on this call. I really appreciate getting an opportunity to talk to you all who are really doing the hard work of holding up democracy in this moment. So I so appreciate you. Just a quick word on who DSP, Democracy Security Project, is. What do we do? So far, we've trained nearly 15,000 people since we started in 2024 in all 50 states. 2,000 different organizations, and we really want to permission the conversation around safety and security for everyone in civil and cultural society, for folks doing civic engagement work, for those of us who are trying to build, happy, thriving communities. As someone who was a young organizer myself, who went and knocked doors and dropped off signs and worked on different types of issue campaigns. we didn't have this resource. We didn't have the ability to have conversations about safety and security and how safety and security can really impact our emotional and mental health. So at DSP, by joining us in this conversation, we are now on your team. I think I have some contact information. You all can reach out to us. We offer one-on-one support when it comes to safety and security. We also offer safety and security training for folks who may be putting people on the doors this year. So, one thing I would say is safety is personal. Um, so what I find to be safe is going to be different for Brandon, different for Cheyenne. We come from all different walks of life, and we all have different triggers. I think my goal in our work is to make sure, regardless of what others may think, you have the tools to take action to keep yourself safe. Because at the end of the day, we need all of you to continue doing your work. We need you to stay on the field. And to stay on the field, you have to feel mentally strong and you have to feel safe to do it. If you're going to try and bring more people into the fold, you also have to make them feel safe. So let's talk about a little bit about the threats and the harm that some of us are facing. Um, Once you become involved in this work in civic engagement, it's important to remember that your well-being is just as important as getting the work accomplished. And your well-being, your emotional boundaries, have to stay strong if you want to continue to work and to feel fulfilled in this work. We talk about in our trainings the types of disruption that we face in this work and the harm of what that means. And there's like a little bit of a ladder. So, like, sometimes we've been the protester or you've been protested. A lot of us have had trackers or people who are taping us, whether to do reputational harm to us. You've had people who've maybe tried to confront you. Um, and the worst is assault, actually having unwanted physical contact. Um, so but before, well, I want you to think about how do you make a plan for any of these types of things that we may be facing? Because what we say at DSP is that readiness and preparedness is like three-quarters of the way of what you need to do in order to keep yourself safe and to remember how to I don't know, mentally keep yourself strong is to know that you have a plan. So when we're thinking of planning when it comes to safety and security, we're going to ask you, how likely is it versus how harmful is it? So a scenario I always throw out there is like, if a meteor were to hit me in my office right now, um, how that would be pretty unlikely. Let's hope pretty unlikely. But it would be pretty critical were it to happen. So you're not going to make a plan for that. That stays in this like white area down here. But let's go back to the protester situation. You could be out doing, at a grocery store collecting voter registration, and you just get someone who's got a bee in their bonnet about your work. That in this climate, I'd say that's probably likely, if not highly likely. And depending on, like we were talking about, safety being personal, depending on your individuality, what the identity you're bringing, um, you know, how harmful is it? I'd say moderate, severe, could be critical. So that's something you're going to make a plan for because one, having a plan alleviates anxiety from doing this work, but two, then you can activate. And also, if you have a plan and you haven't told anyone else the plan, you do not have a plan. So making sure that you share what that plan is with other people that you may be working with. So when you're facing harassment, intimidation, these are the things we want you to remember is One, project calm and confidence. That is so easy for me to say sitting right here in front of my office and not facing someone who may be trying to harass or intimidate me. But we want you to like dig into your spirit and find that. Remembering to maintain distance. You don't want to get close. We're going to talk about de-escalation. And lastly, know when to leave. Sometimes a situation cannot be de-escalated. You do not want to put yourself in more harm by sticking around and, you know, trying to get into it with someone. Know when to walk away. Know when, like, when you've got that little feeling in your tummy that tells you something's off here, know when to turn and leave. So let's talk about de-escalation and how do you protect yourself and how do you get in? How do you do this? So one, I'm going to ask you, are you actually the de-escalator? This is a question you should ask yourself. Because de-escalation means someone's coming at you at 10 energy. If you come in at 12 energy, you're just raising the temperature. So can you, when someone has got that 10 energy, can you come in at a 5? And if you can't come in at a 5, you should not be the de-escalator. This is the like for those of you who are working on teams, those are you who are engaging in this work, know this about yourself. Be honest with yourself because that is definitely going to put you in more danger. The other thing, a lot of us who are more of the helper type people, we want to launch in. We see a problem and we're going to go over there and we're going to like give that guy what for. We're going to tell you to, I'm going to tell you to stop and observe the situation. Actually understand what's going on before you launch in. Then you want to ground yourself. So wherever you are, I'm going to ask you to do this. So plant your feet flat on the floor. Um, if you're sitting, if you're standing, still plant your feet flat on the floor. Take one deep breath, just in through your nose, out through your mouth. You're going to want to do that before you launch into a de-escalation situation because you need to get oxygen to your brain because you need to be able to think clearly. You need to be able to understand and hear what the person is telling you. And a lot of times when we go into these stressful situations, it's our tendency to hold our breath. And that's not helpful. So, you know, project calmness, take deep breaths, maintain your distance. We've talked about that. Don't put your hands on anybody, especially folks you don't know. Speak calmly. I like to say for those of us who are raising children or parents, you know this voice where you're talking to your mama and she is going crazy and you're like, I know you were upset and that you want me to go to church with you on Sunday, but I told you I already had brunch plans and I thank you for the invitation and I will not be going. Um, Give that voice where it's like very calm. You're taking your register down a little bit. And you actually are listening to the person. I understand you're very upset that we're holding this voter registration drive. But we want to engage more people in civic engagement. I appreciate your feedback. Thank you, but we're going to continue our program. A lot of times that's super disarming for people. And it turns them away. Know when to leave. And then finally, document anything. So just because something has happened to you, we need to be better about tracking that data in our systems, whether you're using like well, I won't name, but any system that you are using to track data. If you go to a house and you're knocking doors and you come across someone who was really mean, maybe abusive, dangerous, mark that in your data so that your colleagues and the other volunteers don't actually have to have that experience. And then we're going to talk a little bit about emotional boundaries. Here are the things that I want you to remember. And I won't go through everything, but the couple of things that I'm going to mention. Learn how to regulate your emotions. I find in doing this work that people either have done a lot of work on regulating their emotions or they have not thought about it at all. There's seems to be no middle ground. So I'm going to ask you to start investigating what are those techniques that help you to regulate setting boundaries whether they're in your personal or professional life. What are the boundaries that you need to make you feel safe? I think Brandon was saying this a little bit is like find moments of joy, like put down the phone, like go outside, smell some roses, garden, walk around, play some video games. What are the things that make you happy? And applaud yourself. We are all doing really hard work in a really hard time. And you deserve to feel like, if no one else is going to applaud you, applaud yourself. Feel good about what you're doing. So that's it from me. Thank you all so much for having me and for listening in. You can reach us at info@dspactionfund.org. If you call that number, 1234 DSP help, and the QR code takes you back to our website, democracysecurityproject.org. Thank you all again, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of the conversation.
Thank you so much for that. We covered how to protect your mental health and then how that translates to voter engagement in both of those conversations. And I felt like that would be what was most valuable. So thank you both for being here and for sharing those tips, those tools, those insights. Thank you, Jack, for dropping in those questions and those resources. Wow. So I guess we should all plant our feet, take a deep breath, and send some oxygen up to your brain, right? While you are thinking of your questions, I want you to take a moment to drop them into the Q&A. The Q&A box at the bottom, not into the chat, but we're going to ask the panel a few questions before we get to the Q&A. So this will give you an opportunity to think of what questions you may have. So for our speakers, I have a couple of questions that lean into what we just discussed and what we heard from you, and then also a little bit more about like the impact of barriers that we should be mindful of in terms of having sensitive conversations when doing voter engagement. So let's start with, from each of your perspectives, how are mental health and civic participation connected in ways that people may not recognize, and it may be hard to communicate? And how should we be thinking differently about this relationship between mental health and civic participation, especially in communities that might be under strain? Brandon, I will start with you.
I get to kick it off with the big question. So I think we've touched upon it a little bit that, mental health is one of those issues that impacts everything voters tell pollsters they care about when going to the polls. That entire list has some sort of intersection with mental health, but there's also just the mental health benefits of being civically engaged, of being part of your community, of thinking almost like voting as a social determinant of health, like we would talk about nutrition, or we would talk about housing. It's getting involved to shape those systems and how those systems help us be connected with fostering a sense of community. So I think just right at the top, right? Like, um, it's helping us shape how we live, how we work, how we interact with our surroundings. So thinking of mental health in the same way that we think of other things that we need to be well and participate, and feel connected in our communities, voting is right there in the center of it all. So I think as we start thinking about that, we want to start addressing all of those barriers, all of the things that stand in the way or make it difficult to have a accessible way of getting involved, whether that's in our community or whether that's at the ballot box.
Tisha.
Yeah. And I think what a lot of us, and maybe am just speaking for myself, but what a lot of people are feeling right now is rage. And rage is what a lot of people say is like a secondary emotion. So rage comes because you're so sad at what you're seeing when you look at what's going on in our democracy right now, or your rage because you're just generally mad at someone. And but I think that rage, some people choose to just like pack it down or like just dissociate and turn off. And I think what civic engagement gives you is the opportunity to not necessarily channel that rage because we don't want you unleashing that on the general public, but more of just like, here's an option to not be rageful, but to do something. Um, and what the research tells us is that, when neighborhoods have higher levels of civic engagement and civic participation, people are generally happier. Crime is down, happier citizens. It's like there's a general like socioeconomic ripple effect through neighborhoods when people are just more engaged. And so I think something that we should all do is like remember that so that we're still going to continue to do that work. But when you encounter that friend who either seems like they have just tuned out, friend, family member, community member, they've tuned out, or they're so angry, invite them along to come help you register voters. Like that is how we're going to build a larger pro-democracy tent, is inviting more people in. And then, like we all know, doing this work is more fun when we have our friends with us. And so it's enjoyment for you too.
Absolutely. And I think this is a good opportunity to work in some questions that are popping into the Q&A. We have some questions on security, Tisha, so I'm going to prep you for those. But we talked about at the beginning of this presentation that to be a partner with MVRD, you may want to step up for those who have to step back. And one of our attendees today just asked, doesn't taking small steps back sometimes make others act more dominantly? So I think this kind of lends well to the conversation. And Brandon, I would love for you to answer this. What is the impact of folks taking steps back as far as it pertains to like mental health and the resources that we get from voting? What happens when our communities may be facing a lot of mental health crises and they feel like they need to step back? What are the implications we feel that of them stepping back and us stepping forward for others to act a little bit more or take a little bit more power from us in those dynamics? Kind of a heavy question, but it's also a good one that came in that I had to pause to ask that.
So I think there are a lot of layers there. I say to buy myself some time. But ultimately, I think something that I've learned in all of my advocacy specifically around mental health is we do have still a lot of stigma. We're talking so much more about mental health. Cheyenne and I actually just had an op-ed last week published talking about how we've seen the conversation shift. We've seen people and younger voters and everyone want to start talking more, but there's so many stigma, like deep-seated stigma in our communities. And that can be more than just like as a whole. I think there are ways people don't talk about mental health. There are ways that it's just not a topic that comes up. I know personally, the first time I shared my personal story as part of NAMI's advocacy, that I got four more people who sent me direct messages. And every time I've mentioned it since, someone comes up to me after I finish speaking because they didn't know they could be part of all of this. They thought it was something they needed to keep inside. They needed to be silent about. They couldn't talk with others about. They couldn't say, I experienced this and I want to be in advocacy and I want to work in DC and do all of these different things. People don't always feel they get to see themselves as part of this work. So I think by the fact that some of us can raise our voices to speak up about the barriers that we're seeing, about the barriers that people who don't feel comfortable speaking up quite yet, but have confided in us or have shared their experiences, that we can help illuminate others to what people are facing and urge people to go cast their ballot with that in mind, right? NAMI C3, we're always going to tell people that no matter who you vote for, we just want you to think about mental health. And within that, though, is remembering those stories, remembering those experiences. And sometimes you yourself need to take a step back. I know I've needed to take a week of vacation where I've deleted Outlook off my phone and just went outside, ate a bagel every morning, and just enjoyed some time away from the pings of Slack. But that's okay because we need to be our best selves to continue taking these steps forward. We need to be our best selves to feel that we are recharged and we can represent our communities. I know so often in this work, it feels like there is only wins or losses. But if we're constantly shouldering that, if you're constantly not trying to take care of yourself in this process, if you're constantly not trying to look out for your communities, it can feel a lot. It can feel very heavy. So sometimes you do need to take that step back. Sometimes you do need to take that step forward. I think that's what makes us all such impactful advocates. That's what makes us so impactful at the work we're doing across the country. It's because yes, sometimes we need the reminders. I know I need them all the time that it's okay to take that step back. But that's because we all want to take so many steps forward. And, there are always resources to help you navigate some of that. But I hope that helps just set some of that stage and a reminder that if we want to do all this work, we do have to take care of ourselves.
That's absolutely it. Take care of you first, and be tuned in enough to know what you need so that you can make sure your communities have their needs met as well. Um, Question for you, Tisha. So this is a little bit of a combo question around security from Q&A. Under what circumstances do you recommend not using your phone to video situations? So when we talked about like that de-escalation, and along those lines, if an organization were doing something like rides to the polls to the general public, what should they know around maintaining safety and mental health as well?
Sure. Two great questions. I think both of them, I'm going to lean back on that safety is personal piece, which is you have to understand like your identity. You have to understand like the community you're working in well, to understand, how much danger or generally like just how fine it is to do those activities. So on the camera piece, I'm going to say, typically what we say is for it is our First Amendment right. The court has recently upheld that it's our First Amendment right to be able to videotape situations. And so in so I will stop there. It's our First Amendment right. But the thing that I would say is like you have to be careful of like how close you are to a situation, maintaining some distance from it, not actually engaging in anything that would be called I've lost the word for it, but just like interference in what could be like a criminal situation. So making sure that you are doing that. I'd also say you need to think about and if you are advising other people, their citizenship status, and asking that is a question and putting that into your risk profile. I think for folks who are not citizens, I would think really hard about the situation before putting themselves in that sort of situation. But like it is your First Amendment right. Stand back. And then also what if you've recorded something, what do you intend to do with it? And so does that mean you're going to post it on your own social media? You're going to share it with media? Um, yeah. So, and if you are recording a situation, remind the person who you are recording or what their rights are. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to request an attorney. All of those things are still true. So doing that piece too. For people who want to do practical things, I would say again, like rides to the polls there are whole organizations out there locally that you can connect with who will tell you how to safely do these things. And so if your organization really wants to plug into that, I would just simply like Google and connect with another organization who can give you some of the tips and tools that they have done. But generally, I think when we're talking to people who are offering transport, the question around that is how have you set up a check-in system with the people who are offering transport? So I'm going to pick up person X at X point. I'm going to drop them off there. Did I make it to each point? And if I don't make it to each point and report in, um, what's the plan? Are we going to go find them? Are we like, do they give everyone a Apple tag so that we can actually track their rides? There are ways to engage with technology these days that can help people stay safe if this is something you want to do. So that would be my suggestion. The other thing I would say is we have a whole host of trainings on both of those topics. So like come back to me, like email us and we can talk more about this.
And she's not kidding when she says there's a host of trainings. There is a lot of information, but most importantly, make sure that you feel safe, so that you can make a good plan. Because, of course, you want to start in a good frame of mind, so that you can carry it out safely, whatever it is that you're doing, for your own mental health and, again, for your community. So, um, we are almost at time, so I just want to thank you guys both for being here, for giving these tips. Jack, thank you for dropping in the resources into the chat. We are going to just very quickly breeze through some of the next steps as we think ahead. I want to let you know again that this has been recorded, so we will be sharing the link with you, but also we'll be taking some of the talking points and summarizing them in our upcoming field toolkit. So if you haven't signed on as a partner yet, please do. Please consider donating to NVRD so that we can keep it free for all. As little as $2.50 would help us go. We have our resources coming up for you to use, including our field toolkit, our community organizer toolkit, and we have our social media toolkit as well. But we have those in development now. So what you took from this conversation will be included in our field organizer toolkit. And then we will have our webinars coming up. Before you sign off of this webinar today, we would love your feedback about what you want to see for the July topic so that we can kind of craft it just like we did with this conversation, to meet your needs. So before you sign off today, please just take a minute to do our very brief survey. And we have our voter registration guides that are broken down by state coming up in August. We will have our webinar on August 5th on that. So we're really excited since there's been a lot of voting legislation changes. We want to make sure that those are captured. So without further ado, I want to give you a couple of minutes back, but thank you both for being here. Thank you to our audience for sticking it out. I know voter engagement is really, really strife right now, and it's just really important that we protect ourselves, we tap in and tune in, and we make sure that we are aware of all of the resources that are out there so that we can have them for ourselves, but our communities as well. We're in it together. Please be sure to stay in touch so that we can be able to give you these resources and pass them along to you as they continue to be developed. But we want to thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you at the next webinar. Thank you all. Take care. Bye.